Afternoon, folks. Got another fragrance review for you guys, and this is a clone of Francis Kurkdjian Grand Soir. How'd you like that? All right, so this is by Fragrance World, and it's just really interesting how they really go out of their way to copy just the whole vibe of Mason Francis Kurkdjian fragrances. I've only had one Mason Francis Kurkdjian fragrance in the past. It was Oud Sat Mood. Incredible quality, beast mode staying power, probably one of the strongest scents I've owned and put on. I love the dark exotic stuff, but to me, it was just something that I found myself not really wearing all that much. I ended up throwing it on eBay and selling it. Again, great quality juice, but it just was, even for me, who I really like to douse the living shit out of myself in fragrances, it just was overwhelming, and there was just something about it I couldn't really get past. I mean, don't get me wrong, great fragrance, but that thing, you could spray one spray and you were good to go, and it was just staying power, beast mode. So with that being said, this is a great company. It's an expensive company. They make fragrances such as Baccarat Rouge 540, the Elixir, again, Oud Sat Mood. There's a bunch of different fragrances this company makes, but you're going to pay for them. They're in the $270 price range, give or take. Beautiful company, great perfumers, right? But I'm not going to spend that much for a fragrance. So a lot of times I like to, and most of the fragrances that I buy are going to be clones, right? They're in that $20 price range. And I feel like you can get a lot of great scents out there on the cheap, I don't really want to spend $200 something on a fragrance. I really like the variety. And that's just kind of my attitude towards fragrance collecting. I enjoy the fun of getting my nose on something new, basically, more than having like my signature perfect scent. As always, buy what you like and makes you happy, absolutely. But this is, again, a Mason Francis Kurkdjian clone, and they even call it Mason Fragrance World on the side. It's called Phatkat Amber Eve, Eau de Parfum concentration, although I'd say that very loosely with this particular fragrance. Very interesting. The notes on this, and I'm going to read you the notes based on Grand Soir: amber, vanilla, cyan, benzoin, tonka bean, labdanum, and lavender. This is classified under two main accords. We have amber and vanilla. And I've never smelled Grand Soir. I'm sure that these are very similar, but again, I'm sure the quality of, for $260 is better than this fragrance. I find it funny when I read the reviews. If you get so many people who love something or hate something, and ultimately, you just really got to get your nose on it. First, the presentation, I never get too involved in showing off the cap. I don't really give a shit. The sprayer, if it sprays the juice out and it doesn't blast it like in a clump, sometimes you get a defective sprayer on some of these cheapies, and that's unfortunate. But for the most part, they're good to go. And they all look pretty cool. I can't really get too involved in being like, oh, magnetic cap, and like holding it. Like who really cares? Sorry if you're a fragrance reviewer and you do that. I just, I don't really give a shit. If it didn't come with the cap and I saved $3, I would say, hey, hold on to the cap. But I know some of you folks like this kind of stuff, and that's okay. I just, just saying for me, for my purposes, not really too important. So again, this is Phatkat, which is really odd because that reminds me almost of like Baccarat, right? But they called it Phatkat. You think they would have called it like Grand Amber or Grand Eve or something like that. Kind of a stupid name, I think. But overall, the scent, this is one of these kind of like my style of collecting is I really enjoy getting the package, in the mail, a lot of times from Amazon, and open up the box and just slightly getting a little bit of that aroma, and then actually spraying it. And I don't waste any time. I spray it outside as soon as I get it. I put it right on. I spray it right in the box. And this one I was like, oh yeah, this impressed me right off the bat. Now, what did this remind me of? So I definitely, for me, and they don't make the comparison here, at least I don't think they do on Fragrantica. And remember, take Fragrantica with a grain of salt. Everybody's nose works a little differently, and depending on what you've smelled and your experience, I don't claim to be an expert by any means. I just really enjoy fragrance collecting, and I collect a lot of different things. But I either like it or I don't. And so this one here, and I think for me personally, the disappointment might come in with a fragrance sometimes, is if I get it and it smells like something I already have. And that happens nowadays. There's so many fragrances out there. You're bound to pick something up at some point that reminds you of something else you have, and you're going to be like, oh, well, I just wasted $20 on this, right? Because I could have wore the other one that I like better. But this one here definitely has a different vibe. I get it reminds me of kind of Obsession. When I first sprayed it, I was like, all right, this is kind of a different interpretation on Calvin Klein Obsession, which is a classic, awesome fragrance. I used to have it. It's so cheap, I need to get another bottle. I think that's going to be a better quality fragrance than this one. You know, this here, although it smells great and you get that beautiful vanilla, it's not like a vanilla you would think of like an ice cream vanilla. It's more of like a vanilla bean. It's more of an aggressive vanilla. Not quite as sweet, right? Is the best way I could describe this. Definitely an ambery fragrance for sure. That's a great designation of this fragrance. This is a winner. It smells fantastic, but the only problem is with this, and from what people on Amazon have said as well, the longevity is pretty bad. And I don't really complain too often about longevity. If I get a couple hours out of a fragrance, I'm good. Now, it might just be that I'm becoming nose blind to this, but for instance, I sprayed on a Baby Cat cologne a few minutes ago, and I can definitely smell it projecting. It's all around me, and I'm probably becoming a little nose blind to it. But this stuff I can spray on 6 sprays, and within half an hour, like, you can barely smell it. My mom can definitely tell when I'm putting on fragrance. She'll be like, ooh, I smell that. You know, it doesn't bother her, but sometimes when I get a new fragrance, I'll be like, got a new one, can you smell it? Mom's like, no. And generally when she says that, it means this fragrance is pretty poor, right? It's pretty weak. This is something, if you're going to wear, you probably want to go 10 to 15 sprays on it for people to really smell it. And even then, it's just not going to last very long in your skin. There's definitely again, you get that amber vanilla quality, but there's like a Coca-Cola vibe I get out of this. I'm not sure if other people have experienced that. Put a little bit on here. But you definitely get this. Some folks can be like, it's synthetic. Of course, you're going to get a little alcohol on it. You can even feel the alcohol on it. But even, I mean, it's a great fragrance. I mean, it's a fantastic fragrance. For $19, you really can't go wrong. But some folks might look at this and say, all right, if I'm going to spray 10 to 15 sprays, this isn't going to really last me a long time. I might want to find something with better concentration. Based on Fragrantica, I like to take Fragrantica with a grain of salt. When people say, oh, this reminds me of Grand Soir, right? This one's not actually on there for some reason. But there is Eternal Oud by Lattafa. And I will state that Lattafa seems to be a better quality, in my opinion, than Fragrance World. I feel like the concentrations are just better. I'm not saying they smell better. I'm not saying you're going to, like, this has this big blast of something off-putting. Some people like say this thing, you know, came green. And when you look at it, it's got a very dark ambery color. And I think if you think, I can see where some people might say that it's greenish, but it's like a dark ambery, mildly, it's not really green, but I don't know if the bottle's actually doing something with light to make people think that, but it's definitely not green. Now, it's not impossible somebody got a bad one. I just don't think that's the case, but I understand that if you're a little bit colorblind, you might, I get what people are saying about this, right? I don't think it's, you know, they get, I don't really honestly think they got a bad one. I just think it's just kind of the way they see. And depending on what light they're under, it does have kind of a murkiness to it, right? When we think of amber fragrances, we generally think of things a little more orange. When you look at the picture of this, like Grand Soir is very ambery and orange. This definitely has like a darker kind of hue to it. But I mean, again, for $19, fantastic. But if you are looking for, I think, a better clone of Grand Soir, I would check out Eternal Oud by Lattafa. I am going to pick that up eventually in my collection. 289 people say it smells like the fragrance. Only 80 people says it doesn't. Generally, when you have that much of a difference between yay or nay, it's pretty safe to say that's a good clone of Grand Soir. Doesn't mean you shouldn't buy this. Not really. I think if you like fragrances like Calvin Klein Obsession and those ambery fragrances, this is a winner. It doesn't smell like anything else I have. It definitely has again, the easiest way. I like to dumb it down. I don't like to give you guys big stories about, first it's going to open with some of these fragrance reviewers, and I get why they do it, and that's probably why their channels are doing better than mine, but I'm just not going to lie to you and give you this story that I truly don't believe. And I'm not saying that they're lying, but it'd be like me saying, all right, so for this fragrance is when you first spray it, you're going to get that big blast of amber and vanilla. The benzoins are going to open up. And then as it starts to dry down, you're going to have that that tonka bean kind of poking their head out, and you guys smell that Spanish lavender, and that lavender is just going to put you at ease with that smoothness. You know, I could paint this big fucking lie bullshit story, but ultimately, at the end of the day, I'm just telling you whether I fucking like it or not, and I like it. It's got that ambery vanilla Coca-Cola vibe, and I totally dig it. Now, I don't know if other people have said anything about the Coca-Cola, but just to give you guys an idea of what people have said about this, and again, take it with a grain of salt. You really got to get your nose on fragrances to know if you're going to like them or not. But this guy said Paris Nights by Alexandria is by far the closest clone. I love Alexandria fragrances. I think that they are top notch. And I think if anybody does clones the best, it's them. Absolutely. I haven't smelled that, but this person said they can't tell the difference. This person said generally very nice, linear. And remember, they're talking about the actual one for $250. This guy said amber, cinnamon, or clove-like spice with warm vanilla undertones. More refined than replica Jazz Club. I don't think Jazz Club, I mean, making that comparison, if we say that Jazz Club and the clone that I have and the clone that I have for this and Grand Soir, they're not even similar in my opinion. But again, I'm using that, I'm making that assessment based on clone fragrances. So it could be right, you know, you never know. One guy said, I'm trying to find it here. He says, one guy said smells like grandpa, but in an amazing way. I don't get that. Another person, sex in a bottle. My husband can't keep his hands off me. I think this is definitely unisex, but I don't know if it leans either way. I think a woman or a man could definitely wear this. Absolutely. Fragrance this person said this fragrance will set your nose hairs on fire. Again, just incredible. The difference is people are always going to have a back and forth with stuff. This person said, beautiful amber vanilla fragrance works best in fall, winter, and spring. Again, everything is very subjective. I don't think it's an overly spicy fragrance. I don't think it's an overly sweet fragrance. I think if you like vanilla, easiest way to describe this and whether you might like it or not, if you don't like vanilla fragrances, then this is not for you. But when I think of fragrances that are vanilla based, like I like Armaf Craze, which is a clone of Pegasus. I believe it's clone Pegasus. It's been a while since I looked at it, but that's a very heavy vanilla. And to me, that's a much better fragrance. It's got projection. It lasts for hours upon hours. You could smell it on your clothes the next day. Much better. Whereas this, I mean, for 19 bucks, you can't really complain too much. It's fun to have in your collection. But, you know, so again, my point is that you really have to just kind of take all this with a grain of salt. One person says, damn, I have an orgasm every time I smell it. Probably a dude. This guy said smells so much like Calvin Klein Obsession. I'd say less sweetness and less feminine version, hence the lavender. I like it. I will not be purchasing a full bottle though. And that's kind of where I'm at with $250 fragrances. When you get something like, you know, all these fragrances change on your skin. They change as you wear them. So if you have something that right out of the bottle kind of reminds you of Obsession, I would just buy Obsession for the price. But you know, for the most part, again, and I hate to keep saying this, but I have to, if I'm going to spend a lot of money on something, which is pretty rare, it's got to be something that really can't be duplicated. It's got to be something that when I smell it, I'm like, all right, there's really no exception. I got to get the original. And I just don't think I've ever come across any fragrances like that besides Zoologist. Those fragrances, I can't think of anybody who clones those. And if you want to smell over-the-top unique, like that's the company you go with. But they are very daring. It's definitely not safe blind buy. But, you know, stuff like this is kind of, you know, I've kind of been there, done that. You know, you smelled Obsession for 30 years. This definitely reminds you of that. I totally get that comparison. It is different. You know, again, I think it has more of a Coca-Cola kind of vibe to it, but still a great fragrance. And, you know, regardless, the whole fun, at least for the way that I collect, is just getting my nose on something new, and you know, wearing this stuff where, you know, it always feels good to get a compliment. Somebody say, "Oh, you smell great." But to be honest with you, maybe my choice of fragrances, I'm gonna make fun of myself here. I don't really ever get complimented on my fragrances ever. It doesn't matter if I'm wearing ones that are time tested, you know, guaranteed crowd pleasers like Sauvage. You know, nobody ever says anything to me. So I don't know if it's because I just don't look approachable, or maybe they think like, oh, you know, this guy looks too cocky. You know, I don't know. Honestly, I don't care. Usually when you work with people though, and you build a little bit of a relationship, my job, I don't see a lot of people. So, you know, if you are in a position where you're around a lot of people, you know, generally they feel more comfortable coming up to you and saying, you know, hey, you smell great. Then there's been times where I used to drink, I'd go to a bar, and generally, you know, you'd hear the waitress kind of be like, somebody smells amazing. And you're like, that's right, bitch, that's me. But, you know, again, you got to wear fragrances for you, and getting a compliment is always a plus. But like I said, I don't really get, very rarely do I get a compliment. I know that's not because these fragrances aren't great. I think, you know, again, I can watch many YouTubers, and sometimes maybe they lie and say, oh, I got a compliment this morning. I don't know if they really did or not. People kind of feel weird. I know when I'm very outgoing and very, very bold, and if I smell somebody smell amazing, like a dude, it is kind of weird for me to be like, hey, dude, you smell great. It's like, dude, get the fuck away from me. Like, who the hell are you? So I do understand it might be a little odd. And for, you know, women, you know, if a woman's wearing a fragrance and I smell it and she smells great, I generally will be like, ooh, you smell amazing. But, you know, then, you know, in today's day and age, you know, you come across as creepy. That won't stop me, though. But anyway, that's my assessment on this fragrance. Check it out, pick it up, let me know what you think. Link is in the description as always. Thanks for watching. Have a fantastic day, and take care now.